Sanders didn't hold a press conference, didn't post a cryptic tweet, didn't fire off some late-night rant on live. He just sat in front of his locker after practice, looked a couple of teammates in the eye, and said one sentence that sent shockwaves through the entire building. "I don't think I can stay here much longer." Foul. And in that moment, everybody knew it wasn't just a frustrated rookie venting. It was the calm warning shot from a quarterback who'd done everything right and still watched the organization trip over itself to ignore him. This wasn't about one bad day or one depth chart. This was about weeks of a pattern that was so obvious, guys in the locker room were already joking. It had to be personal. The crazy part? The breaking point came on a day that should have ended all debate. Sanders didn't just have a good practice, he put on a clinic. 17 straight completions, 8 touchdowns. Every throw looked like it was pulled from a highlight reel. Deep outs on a rope. Back shoulder fades that could have been framed and hung on a wall. He was cooking the starting defense so badly that even the DBs were laughing like, "Bro, what are we supposed to do with this?" Coaches watched. Scouts watched. The front office watched from the sideline trying to play it cool. And everyone knew what should happen next. Hand him the first team reps and see if what he's doing against your defense translates with your starters. Instead, when it was time for the first team period, the call came just like it always did. "On the ball offense, Gabriel, you're up." Same rotation, same script. Sanders jogged back to scout team, grabbed a different colored jersey, and went right back to being the guy pretending to be someone else's quarterback while playing better than the one wearing the starter tag. And that's when the energy shifted. Not because he threw a fit, but because he didn't. No eye roll, no outburst. Just that quiet look that said, "Yeah, I see exactly what's going on." That's what hit the veterans the most. They'd seen young guys melt down over way less. Sanders just kept completing passes and taking notes. But later, when the pads were off and the cameras were gone, he finally let the words out. Not in a rant. Not in some speech. Just that one line that felt heavier than any interception. "I don't think I can stay here much longer." See, to really understand how deep this goes, you gotta look past the headlines and into the numbers Cleveland keeps pretending don't exist. In camp, Sanders isn't just playing well for a rookie. He's putting up numbers that would have any other staff rearranging its entire depth chart. Completion percentage hovering just under 90%. No picks. Pushing almost 9 yards an attempt. Every time they track red zone work, he's flawless. Meanwhile, Gabriel isn't terrible. He's just normal, respectable, fine. The kind of quarterback you can survive with, not the kind you build an era around. And when you cut the tape on, the difference becomes painful. Sanders doesn't just read the defense, he owns it. He's calling out blitzes before they even disguise them. He's shifting protections with hand signals before the center even looks up. He's dropping back like a veteran, sliding in the pocket, climbing the lane, and letting it rip before receivers even finish their breaks. Gabriel. He hits the play correctly on paper, but the timing is just that half-second late. That beat of hesitation that turns a completion into a breakup, a touchdown into a field goal, a wide-open seam into a hospital ball. So, how does the guy with better numbers, better tape, and the respect of the entire locker room keep ending up with a scout team jersey on while the other guy trots out with the ones? That's where this stops being a football story and starts becoming a Brown story. Because upstairs, this isn't some mystery. Ownership views Sanders as a franchise-level piece, and not just because of his last name. He's young, charismatic, marketable, and he actually fits the modern game. Jimmy Haslam didn't sign off on drafting him in the 5th round, just to stash him as an invisible emergency option. The front office sees it too. Andrew Berry, the GM, is reportedly pushing for more meaningful reps, more real evaluation, an actual competition instead of this scripted theater they've been running. To them, Sanders is the best quarterback prospect they've had in the building since the franchise came back, and they're watching him torch practice with the backups while the guy in front of him puts together solid instead of special. But down on the sideline, one man still holds the call sheet, Kevin Stefanski. And this is where the tension gets real. Stefanski believes in systems, timelines, structures. To him, you don't just hand the keys to a rookie because he's hot in August. His offense is supposed to be like a language, and every quarterback has to go through years of translation before they're fluent. The problem? Sanders skipped all that. He walked in speaking the language. The playbook didn't overwhelm him. The checks didn't scare him. He wasn't swimming in reeds or lost in terminology. He was ahead. And because that didn't fit the usual progression, instead of rewarding it, the staff basically punished it with patience. The message was simple. You weren't supposed to be this ready yet, so we're gonna pretend you're not. And that's when it turned into something way darker than football. While Sanders is the first one in the building and the last one to leave, while he's draining his tablet battery studying cut-ups and asking veterans about little details in coverages most rookies don't even think about yet, he's watching coaches publicly talk about how Gabriel gives us the best chance right now, and it's important not to rush development. Position coaches will pull him aside and tell him, "You're killing it, just keep doing what you're doing." Then walk into a press conference and back the guy ahead of him. That disconnect eats at a competitor in a way stats never show. Because it's one thing to be told you're not ready. It's another thing entirely to know you are. Have your teammates know you are, and still be treated like you're just there to help someone else keep their job. It's not just Sanders who feels it. Ask the guys blocking for him. The offensive line loves how he runs the huddle. When he's in, everything feels calmer. He's calling out protections, checking the front, pointing out simulated pressures, shifting guys by name, and they trust him. They know where the ball's going. They know what he sees. With Gabriel, they're still adjusting to last-second changes, trying to figure out what he's thinking. And sometimes he leaves them out to dry by holding the ball against unblocked pressure. Receivers? They'll never say it on camera, but off the record, they'll tell you straight. The ball just hits different with Sanders. Timing routes feel like muscle memory when it's him. Deep shots don't hang and die, they slice through the air. Back shoulder fades actually land on the back shoulder. And every now and then in a team meeting, the truth slips out. One veteran reportedly stood up and said what everyone already knew, but was too scared to say. We all see what's happening. This ain't about football anymore. Another starter told a position coach flat out, "You're wasting all our time pretending this is a competition." That's the kind of talk that doesn't happen on normal teams. That's mutiny brewing. That's when you realize this isn't just about a depth chart. It's about a locker room slowly losing faith in the people holding the whistles. While all this drama brews on the field and in the locker room, there's a whole different kind of pressure building upstairs. The regular season isn't some distant idea anymore. It's right there. Defensive coordinators around the league are already cutting preseason tape and circling Cleveland like hawks. And if you don't think they see this mess, you're kidding yourself. Opponents aren't just game planning against the Browns scheme anymore. They're game planning against their dysfunction. Every day that passes without a real competition is another day wasted. Another day where the guy who might actually give you a shot in the division is stuck mimicking other quarterbacks on scout team, while your starter plays it safe in practice. And Sanders feels every second of it. This isn't a guy who came in expecting to be handed anything. He knew being a fifth-round pick meant proving people wrong every time he touched the field. But what do you do when you prove yourself over and over and still get treated like you're invisible? At first, he just buried himself deeper in the work. More film, more reps, more detail. But you can only watch so many weaker performances get rewarded before that quiet question starts creeping in. What else do they want me to do? That's when he made the call to his camp. Not to ask for a trade, not yet. But to talk options. To ask what happens if things don't change. According to people close to the situation, nothing is off the table. A formal trade request. A public statement. Letting the media know how he truly feels, instead of filtering everything through team-approved cliches. Even the possibility of strategically managing his own availability if he feels like his career is being frozen on purpose. All of it is sitting on the table, waiting. Not as a threat, but as a survival plan. And just to make this even more complicated, there's another layer, family. Because this isn't just any quarterback. This is Deion Sanders' son. And say what you want about Coach Prime, but one thing nobody questions is how well that family understands leverage, media, and timing. Publicly, he's keeping it respectful. Privately, people close to the situation say he's furious. At first, he told his son to be patient, trust the process, let the play speak for itself. But patience starts to sound a lot like passivity when the evidence piles up and nothing changes. The Sanders family has never been afraid to speak up when they feel the deck is stacked. And if they decide to lean into this, it won't be by accident. Calculated interviews, strategic comments about predetermined outcomes, and guys not wanting to admit they were wrong. It only takes one quote from Coach Prime on a national platform to turn a quiet internal controversy into a full-on organizational crisis. And Cleveland knows that. They've seen what happens when the media turns something into a circus. They've lived that movie already with other quarterbacks. They're not eager to go back. But the problem is, they might not have a choice. Because the longer they delay doing right by the guy playing the best football in their building, the closer they get to being forced into a decision by everyone except themselves. The money angle makes this whole situation even uglier. Sanders is on a cheap rookie contract that should have been the steal of the draft. If the Browns actually showcased him, he'd be one of the most marketable young players in the league. Jersey sales, endorsements, national games, the whole package. But you can't sell a face of the franchise when the guy isn't even getting first-team reps. Companies aren't lining up to partner with a quarterback the coaches won't put on the field. And ownership hates that. Haslam didn't invest in the Sanders name just to watch all that potential revenue evaporate because one coach refuses to adjust. The business side wants answers. The football side wants answers. The locker room wants answers. Everyone's staring at Stefanski like he's holding the keys to a vault and refuses to open it. And meanwhile, practice footage is leaking. Fans are seeing clips of Sanders threading needles and dropping bombs while Gabriel is skipping passes and throwing behind dudes. Local reporters are asking sharper questions. National analysts are poking holes in the development timeline excuse. And still, every day ends the same. Gabriel with the starters, Sanders with the reserves. That's when the power struggle goes from quiet disagreement to open friction. According to insiders, Andrew Berry confronted Stefanski behind closed doors. Not a screaming match, not a meltdown, just a very direct, explain this to me. Stefanski doubled down on his philosophy. Berry counted with data, with film, with organizational priorities. Neither budged. And that's how you get an entire franchise standing still, while a ticking bomb gets louder in the background. The locker room isn't blind. They know when politics are beating performance. They know when favoritism is replacing merit. Defensive captains like Myles Garrett bust their bodies every season, chasing a championship window that gets smaller every year. And they're watching a quarterback who actually elevates everyone around him get shoved aside so a predetermined plan can stay intact. That's when quotes start leaking anonymously. That Gabriel has done nothing wrong, but Sanders is on another level. That championship teams don't bury their best players. That you can't preach accountability and then ignore the most obvious accountability situation on the roster. And if the coach doesn't listen, that's how you lose a locker room permanently. Media pressure is about to spike too. Once Sanders' quiet frustration leaks into the public, reporters aren't going to hold back. They're going to start asking why the most talented quarterback in the building is being treated like an afterthought. Why players are whispering. Why practice footage contradicts the depth chart. Why a franchise with a history of mishandling quarterbacks is repeating the exact same mistakes with a kid who could actually change their future. The Browns are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to evolution, to admitting the obvious, handing the offense to the guy who's earned it, and letting the team rally behind a quarterback who's already proven he can elevate the room. The other path leads to disaster, to losing the locker room, losing credibility, losing a generational talent who might walk out the door and become a star somewhere else, while Cleveland gets roasted for the next decade. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Sanders has all the leverage, the talent, the name, the marketability, the locker room support, the fan momentum, the tape, the numbers. The patience he's shown is the only reason this hasn't already blown up. But patience runs out. And when it does, the Browns don't get to choose the fallout. They only get to live with it. Sanders didn't shout. He didn't beg. He didn't threaten. He just spoke the truth every guy in that locker room has been tiptoeing around. I don't think I can stay here much longer. And unless Cleveland snaps out of its denial, that sentence won't just be a warning. It'll be the beginning of the end.